Hi guys, in a major victory for the anti-immigration protesters and a significant loss for the government, the Bell Hotel in Epping will now be closed to asylum seekers. It's interesting because in 2022, councils brought similar cases against the Home Office, but back then judges ruled in favour of the Tory government. So what does this mean for the new government when it comes to housing asylum seekers in hotels? And what does it mean for councils who refuse to take them? Have a listen.
Asylum seekers staying at the Bell Hotel in Epping will now be removed after a ruling at the High Court. The Bell has been housing asylum seekers on and off for years. But over the past few weeks, it's been at the centre of anti-immigration protests since two of its residents were charged with sexual offences, one involving a 14-year-old girl. Epping Forest District Council wanted an interim injunction to stop the hotel from being used to house migrants. Lawyers for the council said it was creating a feeding ground for unrest and that it broke planning laws because it wasn't being used for its intended purpose. Their case was heard here at the High Court and they've won, despite a last-minute intervention from the Home Office.
This is not a victory today, this is a ruling for common sense. We always knew the Bell Hotel was the wrong location because of its close proximity to schools and other parts of the community. It was never going to work out.
The Home Office says fewer than 210 hotels are being used to house asylum seekers, down from more than 400 in the summer of 2023. So we're left with some key questions. What happens now to those Epping migrants? And will we see more cases being brought to the High Court? Because this surely has now set a precedent. The Home Office and the hotel owners now have about 24 days to file an application to appeal.
And I'm sure they will appeal. Now, it's interesting because there's so many different angles here. First of all, we have the media, the right-wing media like GB News and Talk TV, amplifying these protests as much as possible. This, I think, played a significant factor in the judge's decision. Not maybe directly, but a lot of people were attracted to these protests because of right-wing media coverage of it. And the more coverage there was, of course, the more influence these protests had. It's so ironic that the Conservatives are doing a victory lap over this as well, because they were responsible for these hotels in the first place. They refused to process asylum claims. Detention centres were at breaking point when they were in power, so they decided to move people into ex-hotels. And they even trumpeted it as a victory, as a sound policy. Now they are the exact ones who are trying to claim victory here, Suella Braverman recently doing so. So the Conservatives are trying to claim victory. The right wing are trying to claim victory. The likes of Reform UK are trying to claim victory as well. And of course, those who've been protesting against these asylum seekers in their area are claiming victory. So a lot of people are. I'm not sure who is actually the victor here. But the loser is, of course, the government. The government now have to find a way to deal with these numbers of asylum seekers. They inherited this disaster from the Conservatives, and they're going to likely face more protests and more challenges from local government who don't want asylum seekers in ex-hotels in their area. Now, I don't know if this is going to explode or if this is going to just simmer for a bit, but it depends on media coverage and it depends on factors like Reform UK. Are they going to see a chance here to really put the boot in to central government? Now, central government can respond by cutting funding to councils who don't play ball, but that risks the possibility of central government not implementing local government not implementing central government's policies in other areas. So if they try to punish councils who are not going along with this, it's possible that the councils will push back in other ways. What you need councils on board. So where will the asylum seekers go? They'll likely go into rented accommodation. This is more expensive. It's more difficult to monitor people, requiring more resources. The benefit of hotels was 300 guys were placed in a central area, so it was easier to monitor them. It was easier to facilitate them. People in rented accommodation is going to be more difficult now. But the Conservatives were complaining about the cost and they were complaining about the hotels. So the hotels are likely to be closed in many cases, but the asylum seekers will have to be placed somewhere else. And this is going to create a massive headache for the government. But the point here is that protests work. Protests work if the media give them significant attention. So we've seen the likes of GB News and Talk TV and other right-wing commentators amplify this as much as possible, and this has been the result. It has attracted more people to the area, people who are not from the area, of course, to amplify the protests, and councils see, okay, we need to do something about this to save our own councillors' skins, but also to take the tension away from our area. I don't know what the government can do in response. They're issuing an appeal, but I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. So the only solution left for the government is to house asylum seekers in other forms of accommodation. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.